When you hear the word Viking, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably horned helmets, right? Epic raids. And yeah, sure, that's definitely part of the legend, but it is nowhere near the whole story. So today we're going to peel back the layers on one of history's most misunderstood peoples and find out what really made them tick. Let's get into it.
Okay, so this is the classic image, isn't it? A long ship crashing onto the shore, warriors pouring out ready for a fight. And honestly, for good reason. They were brilliant sailors and incredibly fierce fighters. This was the image that haunted the coastlines of Europe for hundreds of years.
But is that really all there is to it? Were they just a bunch of pirates from the frozen north? Well, as you've probably guessed, the reality is way more complex and, frankly, a lot more interesting.
So to really understand the Vikings, we have to go back to the very beginning. What was it that pushed them to leave their homes in Scandinavia? You know, the places we now call Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. What made them get in those boats in the first place?
Well, by the end of the 8th century, things at home were getting tight. Scandinavia was becoming overcrowded, and there just wasn't enough good farmland to feed everyone. On top of that, you had these inheritance customs where only the eldest son got the family farm. So if you were a younger son, your choice was pretty stark. Stay home with basically nothing, or get on a boat and sail out to find your own fortune, your own land, your own glory.
And that one decision, made by thousands and thousands of young men, is what kicked off the Viking Age, a whole 400-year period where these Norse explorers, raiders, and traders would completely redraw the map of the known world.
And that right there is the crucial point. These journeys out of Scandinavia took on a lot of different forms. They weren't just one thing. In fact, the very same people who were feared as raiders were also welcomed as traders, and eventually they became settlers.
So first, let's talk about the raiders. And wow, their reach was incredible. We're talking from the coasts of Britain and France all the way down into the Mediterranean. They set up powerful settlements in England, Iceland, and even deep into what is now Russia. Their military presence was felt pretty much everywhere.
But hold on, that's only half the picture. The Vikings were also creating totally different kinds of paths, trade routes. They traveled overland through Russia, all the way down to Constantinople, and even reached Baghdad. They became this vital link in a massive global trade network. So let's break that down side by side. The raiders, they were after quick plunder, gold, jewels, slaves. But the traders, they were playing a different game entirely, moving goods in bulk. They'd sell stuff like wool, timber, and furs from back home, and then they'd return with these amazing luxuries like silk from the East. Two completely different economic models, often practiced by the very same people.
So with all this going on abroad, you might be wondering, what was life actually like back home? Well, it was far from some chaotic free-for-all. Viking society was actually surprisingly structured.
It was really divided into three distinct classes. At the very top, you had the Jarls. These were the wealthy chiefs and powerful landowners. In the middle, you had the Carls, the free people. This was the biggest group, farmers, merchants, artisans. And then, at the very bottom were the thralls, or slaves, who were often captured in raids or bought by traders.
And their homes really reflected this communal, hard-working life. Most Vikings lived in these long, rectangular halls of wood. Inside, the whole extended family, and yeah, sometimes their animals during the winter, all lived together around a central fire pit. It was a life built for survival in a really tough, cold environment.
But you know, for all their impact on the battlefield and in the marketplace, their most enduring legacy, it just might be their sheer spirit of exploration, a spirit that was powered by one iconic piece of technology.
The longboat. I mean, these ships were absolute masterpieces of engineering. They were fast, they were flexible, and they were incredibly versatile. Their shallow design meant they could cross the huge open North Atlantic, but also sail hundreds of miles up shallow rivers to raid or trade deep inland, something no other ship in Europe could do at the time.
And with these incredible ships, they just kept pushing the boundaries of the known world, embarking on this amazing journey west. It all started with raids on Britain, but that soon led to settling the uninhabited island of Iceland. From there, Eric the Red pushed on even further to Greenland. And then finally, around the year 1001, his son, Leif Erikson, made landfall in North America.
Just let that sink in for a second. They were the first Europeans to reach the Americas nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus even set sail. That is an absolutely staggering achievement of navigation and just pure bravery.
And this really gets to the heart of their fascinating duality. On one hand, they were master engineers, building the most advanced ships of their day. And at the very same time, they were highly skilled artisans, creating beautiful, intricate jewelry and art. They were both brutally practical and deeply artistic.
Which brings us right back to where we started. You know, the name Viking itself might come from an Old Norse word for pirate or raider, but as we've seen, that label just doesn't fit. They were explorers, innovators, merchants, and farmers who literally changed the course of history.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Were they violent raiders who brought chaos and destruction, or were they pioneering explorers and traders who connected the world in brand new ways? The truth is, they were both, and it's right there in that messy, fascinating complexity where the real story of the Vikings truly lies.